Hi, this is Dave McLellan, former chief engineer of the Corvette, and I want to welcome you to my CorvetteChief.com podcast. This is Dave McLellan. I thank you for joining my podcast today. We're going to do something unusual, something you might not have expected from me, a car guy who talks about Corvettes. I have with me today my wife of 43 years, Glenda McLellan, and we're going to tell you about the house that we built some almost 40 years ago now. It's coming up on its 40th anniversary, and it's been a fascinating adventure for us, and I hope it's a fascinating story that you will enjoy as well.
And we also want to show you this property that we live upon, and show you how beautiful it is in all four seasons, as well as introduce you to the house and the office and garage and utility building and pool and all those kinds of things. So mostly we just have had a wonderful life in this home, raising our children and enjoying the nature that the Lord has created. And it is spectacular. Every day we're reminded of his goodness and his amazing design.
We were married in 1965, and coming into about 1968, we had visited some of the Frank Lloyd Wright homes in the Detroit area, the Affleck House, the Melvin Smith House, and the Bill Palmer House down in Ann Arbor, and had gotten to know these families. And Mr. Wright had passed away some 10 years before, it was actually 1959, so there was no way that you could do a Wright house, but they suggested that some of Wright's architects might be available, and there was a particular recommendation from Mary Palmer that we contact John Howe. And so Glenda and I set out on a journey to find John Howe. He had worked with Wright all of his career, and after Wright's death had stayed with the foundation for several years and then had moved into his own practice, and he was up in Minneapolis. We drove to Minneapolis and interviewed with John and had just a marvelous day with the gentleman. Glenda, you want to give us your impressions of that? Because I think it was very special.
Well, when we walked into after we were introduced to him and he led us into his office, we knew immediately that we wanted him to design our home. And the reason was because the renderings that he had on the wall that he had produced were the same as the renderings that were in the books that we had looked through that were Frank Lloyd Wright. And in fact, John Howe had done many of those very renderings that were published in books for the homes that Wright built. So we knew immediately that this is the fellow that if we could possibly have him, it would just be wonderful.
So we talked about it with John, and I think you described to him the scale and some of the features that you would need in your home. And then we came back to Detroit and we waited.
Yes, so some of the things that we talked about in his office then were that I remember, Dave, that you said that you didn't want to interfere with his creative ability, that you wanted him to have the freedom to do what he wanted. So we gave him just general specifications, like we would like a home about 2,000 square feet with an attached garage, with built on an equilateral triangle module rather than a rectangular module. And
the Palmer House, if I may just break in Ann Arbor, was designed on an equilateral triangle module, and it gave the house just a wonderful flowing character, because triangles go together to form hexagons, which form a larger pattern, and then with the walls following that pattern, why it leads to a totally unique design.
Yes, the only square angles we have in our home are around the showers and the tubs. We used to laugh about that. Otherwise, we are looking across rooms at 60-degree angles or 120-degree angles. And that 120-degree angle just opens up the space wonderfully. And the roof or the ceiling heights in the downstairs make it such an intimate surroundings.
Yeah, we're getting a little ahead of the story. We waited, and it was probably, 3-4 months? It wasn't that long. And this orange tube, about 3 feet long and 5 inches in diameter, came by mail. And we opened it up, and it was full of beautifully rendered, colored drawings of the house that John was proposing for us. And we've saved those drawings so that we can share them with you.
And going back to when we opened the package, oh my, we just looked at it. And we were so excited. And there was all this built-up expectation and anticipation in our hearts and minds, and we opened it up ever so delicately, and were we totally more than satisfied.
I think Glenda could understand the elevations, but the plan views were a total mystery. So one of the things that I started right away was building a 1/4 inch to the foot scale model of the house, laying out the floor plan, and then building up the fixed walls in cardboard. We didn't have foam core available at that time. This was almost 40 years ago. And then using balsa wood to represent the window wall and its details, and then a roof made out of cardboard. So we had the complete house, first floor, second floor, roof, with its patios, worked out in a scale model, probably within about a week. As we looked at it, we saw some things minor things that we'd like to change. We wanted the back wall of the house to move back to enlarge the den and the bedrooms and the garage. And so we transmitted the changes that we proposed back to John, and he bought them. And we settled on the final layout. And then from that, he produced the working drawings, which came probably another 4 months later. Very complex set of drawings, 13 sheets just packed with information, plus a booklet of all the specifications. 10 of the sheets were of the house, one of them being the electrical plan, then 3 sheets that were all the built-in details in the house, the details of the furniture, the dining table, the complete kitchen and bath designs, built-in bookshelves, the living room with its freestanding pentagon table, and the seat that goes along the wall past the fireplace,
as well as the beds and the desks in the bedrooms for the boys, and all the bathrooms and kitchen cabinetry.
So in anticipation of getting the project underway, we started to build some of the freestanding furniture, and then also went looking for a builder. We had a lot. In fact, it was 2 lots of 1.5 acres in a subdivision where we were planning to build. It was a very hillside lot. We finally found a builder, and I think that the Lord was providential in finding the young man that he did for us. His name was Paul Mason. His father ran a building carpenter contract company, and Paul wanted to do the project. And that's what it really takes with something that is as unusual and distinctive as this. And even though John Howe had moved away from some of the eccentric design details that Mr. Wright had used, and had gone back to more conventional, what I would call conventional construction, there were still a number of details that made the house unique and distinctive, particularly the flush glass around the window wall, and that made it difficult for the average contractor and average carpenter to figure out what they were doing here. So we found our contractor, and just before we started to build, the lot below our home site was built on with an ugly little two-story colonial sticking halfway out of the ground. And at that moment, we decided, even though the house that was below us was totally illegal for the rules of the subdivision, there it was, and it was built, and nobody was doing anything about it. So we worked with the real estate company and found another site about 8 miles north. Mm-hmm. That was actually turned out to be a much better site, because over the next decade we took what was the original 5 acres of the new site and added another 15 to it. So we had a 20-acre site that the house was sited on.
Since then we've reduced it to 15?
Yeah, we've sold off some of the peripheral pieces, but still, from a visual standpoint, the house and grounds are what would you say? That you can't really see your neighbors. They're 600-700 feet away for the nearest neighbor. Not that we don't like our neighbors, it's just that you don't have to look at your neighbors all the time. It's much more fun to look at trees and deer and the home site itself.
Possum and turkey.
And possum and turkey, yeah. One of the I'm jumping ahead again a little bit, but one of the unique aspects of this house is the 1,000 square feet of window wall that totally integrates the inside of the living room and dining room area with the out of doors. We close it off a little bit, not architecturally, but landscape architecturally, with plantings that are at the edge of the terrace. But your views are really long views. Your views are several hundred feet across the meadow to evergreen and maple tree lines that in the fall just become absolutely spectacular. Well, Paul started the house project in earnest in 1969.
September.
Yeah, we worked closely with him. My brother Jim was with us, and we did some of the subcontracts. Glenda and myself and Jim. Glenda had 2 little babies to deal with at that time as well.
But Mom kept them mostly, and I worked with you on the plumbing, heating, and electrical.
Yeah, and we also put the roof on the house in the very end of the winter, early spring, when every morning we'd get up on the roof, and it was a cedar shingle roof, and it was slippery.
We'd have to wait a little bit for the sun to come out and melt the frost on the shingles so that we didn't slide off the roof.
So by the summer of 1970, we had our occupancy permit. The house was enclosed, and we had bathrooms and kitchen and the rudiments put together.
That was June.
It was June.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so we moved in, and then over the next couple of years, we finished the terrace outside, had the brick planters built, and also continued to work on building interior details that John had designed, the interior furnishings for the dining room and for all the bedrooms and the den. Somewhere in that early period, and I've lost track of exactly when it was, we brought in a landscape architect, Joe Reske, who was well known in the area for some of the major commercial projects that he had done, including the GM Proving Grounds entrance.
And Governor Romney's home as well.
Okay, and so Joe worked with us to plant trees in the far field, and then also to help us with the plantings and plant materials in close on the window wall and in the planters. So the landscape plan that evolved over the next several years really falls to Glenda and to Joe Reske and their good work. The house when we moved in was not carpeted. We had concrete floors throughout the first level and wood floors, just the base wood floors on the second level. And it was 2 or 3 years in that we had the ability to lay down. We had enough money to lay down carpet, and we have since replaced that original wool carpet that we put in. But the carpeting that you see in these pictures is as close to the original as it's possible to achieve. The pattern in the living room rug was designed by John Howe, and he approved the colors of the materials. The brown and the gold and the orange and the blue and the red colors are all very strong earth tone colors and go well in a room that is lit with literally 1,000 square feet of glass facing to the southeast.
When we moved in, the only thing that was built were the kitchen and bathroom cabinets. The rest of everything that you see in the house by the pictures that have not obviously been purchased pieces has been built by Dave. He followed John's designs and built all the desks, all the beds, all the bookcases, the buffet in the dining room, and it goes on and on.
So we started living in the house and enjoying it. We, about 10 years in, built a swimming pool out back and air-conditioned the house. It originally was not air-conditioned. And somewhere along the way, we replaced all of the original plate glass in the window wall with low-E thermopane, which literally caused us to take the house apart and then put it back together again, which was actually a lot of fun, but also a lot of work. And when I retired from GM at the end of 1992 and started to do consulting out of the house, why, I soon overwhelmed the space with projects, and we decided that it was time to build a separate garage and office. And Glenda had the really good idea of building the office down the hillside to the west, below the garage, so that what you see visually of the garage from the house doesn't overwhelm the house. And we tried to get back with John Howe. It turned out that by then he was no longer practicing architecture. He had dementia. He was still alive, but not able to do design work. But fortunately, he had trained a young architect who could design a building using the detailed design elements that John had put in the house itself. So we hired Jeffrey Childs to design the office and garage.
In fact, Jeffrey had worked for John Howe 13 years before, had trained under him and worked for him for 13 years before he had us as a client.
So Jeffrey designed a 4-car garage for us and a 1,800 square foot office below the garage that we built during the late 90s. And at the same time, we upgraded the house and had just a number of projects going on. So today we're living in this complete project that is about 4,800 square feet of air-conditioned space, a total under the roofs of about 6,000 square feet, with a 20 by 40 foot pool and deer all around us.
Yes, the pool has a lot of spacious seating room around it as well, and a 4-foot brick wall that's closed on 3 sides and open on, I should say, closed on 2 sides and open on 2 sides.
It's closed on the windward side, so that the wind that prevails from the west kind of goes over the pool rather than blowing across us. And then on the other sides, the evergreen forest was so interesting, we didn't want to block it off, and so we used a very open design, still a fence, but using fine stainless steel wire to close it off, so that you could see through it and enjoy the tree line to the north and to the east of the pool. We incorporated in the office a seating area in the glassed-in area, and then 4 cubicles, 2 of them for Glenda and 2 of them for myself, along the backside of the office. There's also a small dining area, a galley kitchen, and a bath with shower, and Glenda has a special room of her own that's below grade that she can use as a schoolhouse. So it's literally the same footprint as the house, and gives us opportunities to do all manner of consulting and projects right from there.
Don't forget the exercise room that could also be a bedroom on the office level.
Okay, I won't forget the exercise room. So that brings you up to date. We've lived in this house for almost 40 years now. To look at it, you wouldn't believe that this is a 40-year-old house design, but it is. And we have had, I would say, the privilege of enjoying not only the house, but the space around the house, and enjoying it in all 4 seasons, because that's one of the things that's unique about the upper east and Midwest, is the deciduous trees turn absolutely brilliant colors in the fall, and the snow in the winter, if you don't have to go someplace every day, or if you have 4-wheel drive, it's a fairly easy trek. But the beauty of the place in winter is astounding. And of course, in the spring, there's lots of flowering plants that bloom and give just a spectacular couple of weeks in spring.
Dave spoke of the window wall, and I would like to give you a little impression of what it's like to look out from that window wall. If you're if you come into the living room and step down into the living room, if you look off to the right, you see a tree line of honey maples and other kinds of maples that leads down to the 2-car brick utility building, and it has electrical, but it doesn't have water. But it has a sprinkler system. I suppose you could get water anyway. And then if you continue down the driveway in the spring, there are the most beautiful flowering crab trees.
So there you have it. And when you see Glenda and myself or meet us at a Corvette meet, we enjoy being at the Corvette meet, but at the same time, we enjoy our home so much that it's a joy to get back to Michigan and to home.
Yes, we do. We love our home and we love our solitude.
So there you have it. I hope that was interesting and enjoyable. We certainly enjoyed sharing it with you, and maybe it'll give some of you an inspiration to build your own special place in the world. I want to thank you for listening to my CorvetteChief.com podcast. For additional information on today's topic and more, visit my website, CorvetteChief.com. And while you're there, why not leave a comment in the notes section?